So I want to tell you about a seller that I was talking to not too long ago. He was doing $28,000 a month on Amazon, and he's been doing it for around about 2 years. He had a spreadsheet, he had a routine, and he generally believed that he was only 3 months away from handing in his notice. Well, we actually sat down and went through his real numbers. This is his cost of goods, this is his fees, and the reimbursements they didn't chase up, which left him with only £3,200 profit. But he needed $4,500 to be able to replace his current salary. So he wasn't only 3 months away from handing in his notice, no, his business was actually going backwards and he wasn't aware of it. And this story is not unusual. In fact, I hear stories about this from sellers all the time. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what it takes to make a full-time income from Amazon FBA. We're going to be talking about the real framework, we're going to be talking about the maths that a lot of people get wrong, and we're going to be talking about those hidden fees that are quietly stopping you from ever going full-time. Let's get into the video. So the first thing we need to work out is how much do we need to make as an income? So you've got to think about stuff such as your housing costs, you've got to think of your bills, your food, and the reality is you want to be as realistic, or arguably even oversell this more than undersell this, because otherwise you'll pay the price down the line. Now when you've got this number, this is going to be your profit target, not your revenue target. There is a massive gap between profit and revenue, and this is actually what catches a lot of new sellers out. But it's a really easy trap to fall into, and that's mainly down to Amazon Seller Central. Amazon Seller Central dashboard just shows you what your revenue is, not what your profit is, and there are so many fees in between there, which they make it very awkward to find. For example, this seller we were talking about earlier, he had $28,000 a month in revenue, but was actually only turning over 3.2k profit. This means he's only working about an 11% margin. And the problem mainly comes from him not being aware of all the referral fees, we've got storage fees, we've also got reimbursements, we've also got returns, and this stuff really eats away at that profit that you think you're making, but in reality, your profit's going to be lower than what you expect it to be. So I'm going to use an example for when I first started out. So when I first started out, I was looking to make around about £2,000 a month. Now initially, I wasn't using SellerToolKit, and I really paid the cost of that. That's because every single time I got a sell on Amazon, I was just very happy. I had no idea how much money I was making because I didn't really understand the fees, but I was happy that stuff was selling on. So I would have been happy selling something on and maybe making 50p off it, as equally as if I was to sell something on and maybe also go make £10 off of it. But then I'd also go and fall into the trap of something selling on and I'm happy that stuff is selling, but actually I'd be making a loss of it because again, I'm not aware of the fees. But then I started using SellerToolKit and it gave a breakdown of all the fees. In fact, what I did was I backlogged my previous month and saw that actually I wasn't doing anywhere near as well as I thought I was. To work out how much revenue you need to make on Amazon, you really need to understand your margins. And that is exactly what we're going to do next. So what is a margin? A margin is the percentage of every pound in revenue that ends up being profit. So in this example, we are going to be going for a profit target of 3,000. So if I was working at a margin of 15%, I would have to make 20,000 in revenue. But this is where margins really come in, because if I maybe get better at sourcing or I can lower my costs somewhere, then maybe I'm working now at a 20% margin. Now instead of having to do 20,000 in revenue every month, I now only have to do 15,000 in revenue every month. But of course you've got the other side of that, and maybe your sourcing isn't quite as good, or maybe your costs have gone up, and maybe you're only working at a 10% margin. That means for 3,000 profit, you're going to have to do 30,000 in revenue. So from this, we can see that someone actually only doing 15,000 in revenue can actually be earning the exact same profit as someone doing 30,000 in revenue. And this really shows why margins is a really important stat to keep on top of, because in the end of the day, it is how much profit you're going to end up making. And chasing revenue without understanding your margins can end up being one of the most exhausting things going. So we talked about how margins are really important to keep on top of and really important to understand, but what can kill the accuracy of knowing your margin? Well, the two main things is bad cost of goods tracking and scattered data. Inaccurate cost of goods tracking can actually completely offset your profit and loss. This is because if I went and bought 100 goods at £5, and let's say they sold them, and then I went and bought another 100 of the exact same goods at £7, if I didn't update in my spreadsheets that they've gone from £5 to £7, my profit's going to be looking a lot higher than they actually are. And scattered data can make everything 10 times worse, because you can have figures just in random spreadsheets, you can potentially have storage costs that aren't being accounted for, potentially stock that isn't being reconciled if Amazon is damaging it. But to sort out both those problems is exactly why SellerToolKit uses a first in, first out policy when doing your cost of goods. So as soon as an order lands, SellerToolKit is automatically gathering all the data at the same time. It's working out exactly which cost of good is being associated to that individual sale, it's working out the expenses, all live exactly to the penny. And the best thing about this is it now allows you to see the margin per individual ASIN, because it's all well something selling on consistently, but if it isn't selling at a high margin, it generally might not be worth your time replenishing that good. This then allows you to set your revenue target on actual maths, not hope, and allows you to start building towards that goal of a full-time income. But even once you know your margin, there's a layer of cost that most sellers don't know about. So let's go through them. So we'll go back to the example of a guy who is selling £28,000 worth of revenue every month. Now 28,000 is no figure to be laughed at. He is probably shipping a lot of units. But because he is shipping in a lot of units, this now allows Amazon to be making a lot of mistakes. For example, when he's shipping those units into Amazon, maybe let's say he says that he's gone and shipped in 100, and he has gone and shipped in 100. But Amazon receive it and say, well, we've only received 95. Well, if he doesn't actually go and chase that up, those 5 units, he's just going to have to go and take as a loss. But if he does go and chase it up, well, then he can get repaid for those 5 units. And the problem is, this guy hasn't been chasing up the discrepancies for 4 months. In fact, in those 4 months, he's ended up being owed £1,800. Well, you might say, well, he can go and get that £1,800 now. Well, Amazon actually changed their rules from having 18 months to go and chase up these discrepancies to now they're only being 60 days. So this is the hidden cost problem, and it's something that a lot of sellers aren't aware of how big it is, because it's not just reimbursements. We've got aged inventory surcharges, which is when inventory is sitting in the warehouses for too long. We've got placement fees, inflating your actual cost of goods. And finally, we've got long-term storage penalties. Now, none of these are overly obvious, but in accumulation, these really do go and bleed out your profits. The reimbursement issue alone is costing Amazon sellers a lot more than they're aware of. In fact, I can guarantee that Amazon probably owes you money right now, because consistently Amazon is losing your stock, damaging your stock, and miscounting your stock, and you've only got 60 days to chase these up, otherwise it's gone. So SellerToolKit's reconciliation system is consistently checking these all in the background. It cross-checks every shipment, return, removal against Amazon's data, and it'll also go and flag any of those reimbursements getting close to the expiry on being to claim for them. It'll then go and generate a ready-to-submit file to go and send into Amazon, with taking no cut whatsoever. In fact, the average SellerToolKit user actually recovers £295 in just the first month. One seller was also able to recover over £2,000. In fact, another seller said that the reimbursements alone managed to pay for 2 years worth of SellerToolKit. In fact, I remember one of my first reimbursements I had to do before I was using SellerToolKit, and it was a nightmare, knowing what sort of terminology to use and just consistent pushback from Amazon for money that they owed me. Now we've got the final piece of the puzzle. You've got the margins you now understand in your business, but we need to protect them as we scale our business to be able to protect our profit. So let's talk about how we're going to do that. So getting to full-time income isn't just about hitting the targets once, it's about hitting them consistently and being able to rely on them. So once you've got your margin, 2 things destroy it more than anything, and most sellers just walk straight into them. And the first thing is running out of your high-quality inventory, because you're missing out on sales when you're out of stock, and it can take weeks to be able to get your stock into Amazon. A very common thing for sellers to worry about is to not be able to sell an item, but actually you also have the problem of selling out an item too fast or selling at too low of a margin, because high sales at a low margin is just creating extra work but not necessarily extra profit. SellerToolKit's smart replenishment forecasts what to replen, when to replen, and how much of it to replen. This means that you're never going to get caught out running out of stock, but it also means that you're not going to go and overstock and get hit with lots of storage fees. And the second one comes down to pricing without any visibility. And this happens because most reprices are generic and people don't actually understand why and how much something is either going up or down in price. With SellerToolKit's repricer is 100% rule driven. You set the logic and get to see every single calculation. But its repricer is also going to flag issues to go and help you. For example, it'll help you with inactive SKUs, it'll help you with low buy bulk percentage wins, and it'll also help you with any of your listings stuck at minimum. And underneath all of this is really just understanding your margins inside and out. It's understanding which ASINs are generally profitable versus which ones are just subsidized by the ones that are. It's understanding when your costs go up. It's understanding what Amazon owes you and when you should go and collect it. And it's also understanding to restock before problems happen, not after it. One of the biggest misconceptions is the sellers that manage to do this full time aren't the ones with necessarily the highest revenue. It's the ones who have the clearest insight into their business to allow them to consistently protect their margins. So if you want to know if your Amazon business is actually making money, make sure to click on the top link in the description to start your free trial of SellerToolKit. It will show you exactly where your money is going, what Amazon owes shows you and if every single product is actually worth selling. So again, make sure to click on the link below to get started for free. And if you're interested in watching another business to improve your Amazon logistics, make sure to check out this one right here.